Monkeybone was a part live-action, part stop-motion animated dog comedy film made in 2001 and was directed by Henry Selick, who also directed The Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. This movie was also based off of Kaja Black Lee's graphic novel Darktown. Now, before I get into what I liked and hated about this film, I'd like to give a brief summary on this film. This movie is about how a cartoonist named Stu Miley, played by Brendan Fraser, has created a comic strip called Monkeybone that proves to be extremely successful, and he also has a beautiful girlfriend named Julie, played by Bridget Fonda. But Stu's great day of presenting his new comic strip ends in tragedy when he and Julie get into a car accident and Stu is put into a coma. While Stu is in a coma, he ends up in a surreal and spooky place called Downtown, which is sort of the limbo between life and death, and while Stu is in Downtown, he meets up with his crude creation Monkeybone, voiced by John Turturro. It wasn't until later on Stu learns that there is a plot brewing between Monkeybone and Hypnos, the god of sleep, played by Giancarlo Esposito, that involves taking Stu's real body, and Stu must stop both Monkeybone and Hypnos before it's too late. Okay, so let me just get the things I enjoyed about this movie out of the way. For one thing, I really enjoyed the surreal atmosphere of this film, since I am a huge fan of surreal movies, and this movie definitely had many surreal images and situations that I really enjoyed. Monkeybone seems to be a combination of Beetlejuice and Cool World wrapped up into one movie, and it really gave this movie a creative feel. It's like Beetlejuice because both films explore the theme of death, and it's like Cool World because both movies have about the same plot. Cartoonists ends up in a surreal world where they meet up with their creations, and their creations plot to use the cartoons to their advantages. I love the setup of Downtown is set up as an amusement park. What, with the images of the inhabitants of Downtown having different booths where the comatose people could play at? And when we are introduced to Downtown for the first time as Stu goes through a creepy-looking roller coaster ride to get to Downtown. The movie is visually stunning, as the bizarre imagery of the downtown citizens were a treat to watch, and I was blown away by seeing images of a cyclops and roadkill animals. I also love the fact that the reason why Stu wanted to get out of downtown, or get out of being in the coma, is because he wanted to tell his girlfriend Julie how much he loved her, which really brought out a positive aspect to his character, and I did like the brief little scenes shared between Stu and Julie since they show how much they truly care for each other. Now, even though I've mentioned some things I liked about this movie definitely had so many problems for me. For one thing, I felt that this movie had a lot of potential to be better than what we are given. What I mean is that there are so many plot points that the movie didn't really expand on that I wish they did. For instance, concerning the world of Downtown, they have mentioned in the movie that Downtown can't survive without nightmares or something to that nature, but they barely shown any scenes that detail what would happen if Downtown doesn't have enough nightmares to sustain them. I would have liked to see more scenes of how the nightmares occupy the world of Downtown, and how the world of Downtown works in general. What I really enjoyed about the world in Beetlejuice was how the film was able to explain so much about how the afterlife works, by showing us that the afterlife is like some kind of bureaucracy, where the dead are given a handbook on how to scare the living properly. I would have liked to see more about the inner functions of Downtown so I can understand this new world that we are being introduced to. Another problem I had with this movie was the lack of character development with the characters. It felt like the characters were one-dimensional because we don't know much about their backstories, and it seemed like the movie was going through the plot too quickly to really get a grasp on the character's background. It felt like that the only character who has some kind of development was Stu himself, since we know that he's a cartoonist, but he also had a brief arc where he wanted to get out of downtown to tell his girlfriend Julie how much he loves her, which brought a lot of sympathy for his character. The characters I probably had the most issues with were Kimmy, Stu's sister, who is played by Megan Mullally, and Julie. Kimmy was pretty much just introduced into the story as being the one who wanted to pull the plug on Stu because of a pact she and Stu made when their father died. What was disappointing about Kimmy's character was that she wasn't in the film much, and we don't really know what her relationship with Stu really is, since the film barely showed Kimmy and Stu being together, and when the second half of the film got started, she just disappeared without a trace. I would have loved to see more moments between Kimmy and Stu, and see how Kimmy eventually came to the decision to pull the plug on Stu, whether her relationship with Stu was good or bad. Another character I had a problem with was Julie, Stu's girlfriend, as she was just mainly seen as Stu's girlfriend and nothing else. Sure, we know that Julie is a therapist who cures Stu of his nightmares, and that she was the one who created the nightmare juice that Monkeybone used in his plans, but the film never really focused on how intelligent Julie can be or make her a more proactive character. Julie could have possibly stood out more as a character if she had created an antidote to the nightmare juice she created to stop Monkeybone. Of course, that's just my opinion on how Julie could be more proactive in the film. I also want to see more backstory history between her and Stu, and even though I like the idea that Stu and Julie met each other when Julie was trying to help Stu through his nightmares, I felt that the film didn't really provide us a more detailed history on their relationship, so it seemed like their relationship was just started automatically instead of giving time for their relationship to develop. Another problem I had with this film was that there wasn't a lot of focus on the plot, as it seemed like the script was mainly composed of sexual jokes. Now, I usually don't mind having a lot of humor in a film, but in this case, the sexual humor shown by Monkeybone and some of the other characters sort of overrided the whole plot of the story, with the plot being about Stu going into a coma and then having to stop Monkeybone from putting nightmare juice inside the people. Even though the plot was interesting enough, it felt like everything that comes out of the characters' mouths was a sex joke, and it sort of distracted me from the whole plot of the story. Monkeybone is rated PG-13 for crude humor and some nudity, which is an appropriate rating for this movie. There's some fart humor and many sexual jokes made throughout this film, so some adults might find this movie a bit too immature, while young children would not be able to watch this movie because of the PG-13 rating, and because of some frightening images, which are mainly shown during the scenes where Stu goes into downtown. Overall, I'm giving Monkeybone a 4.5 out of 10, and I would have rated this movie higher because I love the surreal imagery, but I want more focus on the plot and the characters. Monkeybone may have some really interesting scenes that made this film visually stunning to look at, and it may have had an interesting premise, but the film is bogged down heavily by the lack of character development and not enough focus on the plot at hand. So you want a movie that has creativity, but I also want to feel something for the characters and the situations they are involved in, so that way I can sympathize or cheer for the character whenever the situation is in their favor or not in their favor. Well, that's my movie review on Monkeybone, and be sure to stay tuned for more of my movie review videos. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you later.